right now. Ooh, early morning recording here. I'm about to head out and get my day in. But I do want to go ahead and get an episode out the way. We've missed a few episodes, missed a few recordings here. So I just want to go over those so we can get to our next topics. I might have a full episode. I might not. There will definitely be commercial breaks. I'm on the road. I'm on the move. But I do want to, like I said, cover those topics we started to the other night. So it is your boy Dez, aka Karmic Dez 85. You can find that on most social media platforms, I believe. I know I'm on Facebook, obviously Instagram, um, TikTok, YouTube. So it's out there, and the whole crew is out there. And the episode that we did the other night, we started to get into talking about religion, and I know most people have feel a way about religion and politics. Those are some people who have a code. Those are two things they don't talk about with other people. In the public spaces, religion and politics, because they can get very heated. In regards to religion, I had to prove to my brother that it definitely can get heated even between blood siblings and stuff like that. And so with that situation, me and him were discussing our interpretation of God based off of what we were reading and what I was reading at the time in the Bible. And long story short, it got heated in how we were interpreting God, describing him, describing attributes and whatnot. And it got to the point where I told him, "Fuck his God." Now, the way I look at it is, if you're content and sound and stable and strong in your belief in your faith, somebody saying "fuck your God" shouldn't be a problem to you, because it's offensive, but they may be. It's like having confidence, that your God exists, for lack of better, clarification. That can go for Buddhism, Islam, whatever. What your God does for you, as long as it makes you a better person, who can refute that, right? And that's what my whole point of that was. So he attacked me, and of course I defended myself, right? Mind you, we were brothers, or our brothers, and we were willing to go at it with each other based off of our belief. And after that, the day afterward, he sat down. I sat down with him. And we, kind of talked it out. We kind of and he's like, "Okay, I see what you did." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I see what you're saying." That he apologized. He said it should never gotten that far based off of our belief. And I explained to him that was the whole reason I took it that far, because he wasn't understanding what I was trying to get across. Like, you could believe what you want to believe, but the moment that you get upset and you want to force that on people, and you know take violence based off what you believe, I think you're taking your belief out of context. You're going too far with your belief. If you believe it, believe it. You don't need me. You don't need me or anybody else to validate your belief. But there, part and parcel of that is you also have to remain in reality. So that's it's a line to walk, right? So we started to talk about. Well, the other night it was me and Chris. Google it. But we started to talk about the string of atheists who are now making statements regarding Christianity, and how it may actually have been good for not only the world at large, but more specifically American society. And from watching the video, one of the few of the things that they touched on were, it's like principles, stuff that it's the inner shit, right? So it's kind of like what I was saying a few episodes ago. I want to say in regards to bettering yourself, getting taking stock of yourself, reviewing yourself, and all that, and getting to the ideal. So yeah, when we were talking about the ideals, so one of the things they're alluding to is without that, like even if you take Jesus and God, Jehovah out of the picture or whatever, there still should be an ideal that you aspire to make you, or to give you an option to be better than you were the day before or the minute before. And what they're noticing when they these are psychologists, well, the three that they focused on, let's break that down here, were Sam Harris. He's a psychologist, I believe, if I remember correctly. He's also an atheist, and he's done a number of speeches and talks as to his reasoning as to why he's an atheist, and breaks down a lot of phenomena and interactions in our real life world, and explains them without a God, right? The other one is Richard Dawkins. For anybody that knows Richard Dawkins out there, Richard Dawkins wrote the book The God Delusion, which argued against grand design, which would be a god, and he put up an argument for natural selection. Now, that's not saying necessarily evolution as most people would depict it, but natural selection is a part of evolution. Um, so, with the natural selection versus grand design, let's break that down for a second. So, the grand design theory the grand design thinking is a way of thinking that the universe and everything that we know of started with God, right? So for y'all science aficionados, those who are into the sciences, cosmology and the like, there's the Big Bang. So before the Big Bang, and this theogony, I believe it's called. No, that's the wrong word. Uh, let's go with theosophical cosmology. Let's do that. Or teleological cosmology. Let's do that. So, according to teleological cosmology, before the Big Bang, there was a being, that being God. So God would essentially initiate the Big Bang. He would be the prime mover in some way, shape, or form, right? So that argument, going on from that argument, so after the Big Bang, then he created space and time. After he created space and time, he created, the planets, stars, Earth, Moon, so on, humans, so on, birds, so on and so forth, right? The 6 days. So the argument there is that God spent those 6 days, meticulously by hand, or whatever supernatural force he used, to create everything individually, piece by piece, right? Now, if you pay attention to physics, that seems like a lot, considering energy scales and time scales and all that. Now, how much energy would you need to be able to create the universe, bit by bit? And I think I have an answer, so we'll get to that later. Um, so he did that, right? That's what the thinking is, that everything is created bit by bit. Your baby in the womb is created bit by God. So he's actively working in the world today. Now, with that phrase, some would say, well, how can you say that when we pray to him and we don't get our prayers answered? There are people suffering all across the world. People who can't eat, starving, right? According to that, way of thinking, he may just be busy. Which brings into question omnipotence. That he could be everywhere at once. Yeah, that would make sense, but we also live in a physical realm. So there's metaphysics that comes into play. So yeah, people drive ridiculously on these roads. So the next way of thinking is that everything is natural selection. So if we're talking about creation, right? So creation, God, of course, everything up to that the Big Bang point would have been it. God would have started the universe and let it go its own course. So he didn't spend 6 days creating per se, according to this other way of thinking. So everything came together by natural selection or trial and error. So this eye is no good. Well, let's do it. Let's change this particle, or let's change this molecule, or change this structure, and oh, now we have an eye, right? Natural selection, random processes. So the big separator or big divide between those two, really, when you think about it, is more or less time scales. Again, time scales and energy scales, for that matter. One time scale, seems almost instant, right? Some describe it as taking a leap up 100,000, up 100 feet, 100-foot wall with no tools and being able to do that. That's what they're saying. The grand design theory or thinking would equate to, as opposed to natural selection would be like, hey, how do I get up this cliff? Are there any tools I can use? Is there any structures I can climb onto to get some leverage to get up this thing? So it happened incrementally. So that's the big debate there, right? So with that being said, we're going to carry that over into the next segment. I've got to go into the store. I've got to pick up some stuff so I'm going to give you guys an ad. I will be back as soon as I get from in the store. We'll pick up where we left off. Grand design, natural selection.
Hey y'all, this is Kim from Serenity's Kiss. Y'all know me from the Wanna Talk About It podcast. I just wanted to let y'all know that I do have something ready for this weather. I know fall isn't right quite here yet, but you still got those mosquitoes just kind of festering. Come to my shop at Serenity's Kiss. That's on Etsy. I have a Serenity's Kiss fragrance for you all. Citronella lemongrass. It's going to keep the mosquitoes away and it smells really nice. Again, this is Kim with Serenity's Kiss. Y'all know me from Let's Talk About It podcast. Sorry about that. Want to Talk About It podcast. Find us on Spotify. I am right here. If you have any questions, just let us know in the comments. It's good to talk to ya. Goodbye.
All right, I'm back. So we were talking about intelligent design versus natural selection. So we're going to pick up there. Let's see where I want to go with this. So the atheists, these three in particular, there was one more as well. Can't remember his name. I know it. It's the guy. He's HBO, Bill Mayer, and he's Bill Mayer over the past maybe 10 years has been very vocal against Christianity, and it's been, like I said, there's been a change in tone, so to speak. So each of these three, well, Richard Dawkins, I did find statements from him stating that he's not a believer himself, but if the belief, kind of like me, if the belief inspires you to reach for, more than what you are, to become a better person, then he thinks that is good, right? And I think overall, a lot of atheists would probably agree with that statement. I believe Sam Harris does, even though he rationalizes that you don't need a higher entity looming over you in order to be morally good, right? And on that statement, I partly agree, because again, it goes back to the ideal. So, what would be like the ideal or the utmost morally good? Some would call that God, right? Some would call that your higher self. But either way you look at it, your higher self would be considered your ideal self, your perfect self. In God would be considered, perfect, omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, all of those things. Yeah. So, like again, I partly agree, but I mostly disagree with that, because you have to have something to keep your aim at, and if you don't have an aim on, let's say, good morals, then what's to keep you to attaining or aspiring to that point. uh, and Bill Mayer, and I believe he's along those lines too. You don't need a God to be morally good. So I would pose the same question to him: what is the ideal that you're aspiring for, in the utmost good then, right? So what they've noticed is that as religiosity has gone down, um, sexuality has gone up, or open sexuality, I should say. I won't say overall sexuality has gone up, because before, the recent era, we really didn't know. Uh, but what we're seeing out in the open now seems like, yeah, maybe it's more out there. I think I said crime is up. Corruption is up. Um, everybody's more hedonistic, as in they're out for themselves. Their own selfish pleasures, things that make them feel good in the moment. And it seems like there's no overall planning in order to sustain a good future generally, as opposed to a good future individually, right? And so these are some of the things that they've noticed. And when you look at what religiosity does for the general public, it is, some would say, I think it's called Marx that said it was like as an opioid for the masses, right? And I can see that. But on some level, it's like I believe that the masses, as a whole, generally, we need that. I talk to, I don't even consider myself a deep thinker, but I do think about things. And when I talk to people about some of the things I think about and realize they haven't even considered these things, and I'm not even talking about just like physics. I'm talking about like deeper morals, the inner workings of our relationships with each other and our surroundings. Right? Most people don't think about those things the way I think about them, and I think that may come from the fact that I was very spiritual for a large portion of my life. I was always searching, right? When I can't say I was like, very, I wasn't religious. I wasn't a Christian Bible thumper, church going. I wasn't that guy, but I was spiritual. Like I said, I'm a searcher, I'm a seeker. So I wanted to, I still want to know the ideal. So I want to know God. I want to know what this is all about, And some people don't live like that. They just want to live life. They want to don't want to think about those things. And I get it, because you don't want to add more stress and anxiety on your head than what's necessary. But at the same time, if you don't consider these things, then what are you considering? right? Do you consider your surroundings? And then I can tell you right now, most people don't consider their surroundings. And my evidence for this is you look at renters' habits. Most people don't take care of their home unless they're buying the home. So if they're renting the home, they're not concerned with the upkeep for the most part. They're only concerned with the upkeep for as much as it keeps them comfortable. But they're not considering the comfortability of the people coming after them. And we talk about prices going up. Let's take that for example. The housing situation, renters versus owners, right? So if I'm a renter, if I own a building and I'm renting it out with the expectation that I won't have a lot to. Oh well, I'm renting it out with the implication that I won't have a lot to repair and put back into it for those repairs and cleanup and whatnot once a tenant leaves, as opposed to the expectation that I probably will have to do those things, right? So if I have to continually, after every tenant, fix holes in walls, clean carpets, redo ceilings, repair windows, get new screens. If I got to do just the minor maintenance stuff like that, why would you expect rent to be the same over a span of time? Rent is going to go up because I'm losing money having to repair what you didn't take care of. It's simple. If you're going to take care of it in your home, when you buy a home, why not practice how you would do that in your rental home, your practice home, right? See, we don't think about these things because we've lost that sense of community, which religiosity did bring us. So when people say, they're focused on themselves and their spirituality, I get it. You want to be strong, you want to have your aura strong, you want to be protected in yourself. But remember, spirituality is not about you. It's not about me. It's not about the egoic I. Spirituality is about the whole, the all. And a lot of people miss that point. Especially in today's society here in America. I'm not sure about the rest of the world. There's a phrase that used to be said, when I was coming up, when it comes to raising kids, that it takes a village. And I ask, where's the village? And I see kids walking around, they talk more vulgar than us adults. And, I'm one for, all freedom of speech and all that, liberties, sovereignty. But at some level, I find myself, hey, y'all doing too much over there. Tone it down. 1 or 2 cuss words, okay. I understand it's going to happen. But every other word out your mouth, and you appear to be no more than, 12, 13 years old? You ain't been through too much. You ain't been through that much in life, bro. I guarantee it. Right? Well, in this area, I can't say, for everybody. But for the most part, nah. What are we doing here? So we look at that aspect, let's look at the home rates, nuclear families. They're not being built like they used to be built. From what I can see, generally speaking, in America, and in regards to men as a whole at this point now, we want families. We would like to have and keep our families, but we'd also like our families to understand that the way things are going in this world, it's not easy. It's really not easy being a man. Understandable, it's not being a woman either. It's not easy being, just in this world of struggle and sacrifice. But on the flip side of that, there's a lot of good in this world, right? So if you lose that focus on the good, and sometimes the good may not happen to you as often as you'd like. In those times, I've grown to understand that we've got to be able to see what is good in our lives. We play that comparison game a lot, right? And if we really believed, because people say it all the time, God, I trust God, God got me this, but if you really believe that, then you really wouldn't worry about what the other person has as much. Or you wouldn't worry about or concern yourself about what you don't have as much. Because as long as you have what you need, you're gonna be all right. That's how I see it anyway. And that came from my time living in my spirituality. So one thing that spirituality and religiosity did again was bring people together. And when you got married, maybe 20 years ago, divorce rates started going up, of course, but they were still high. But it seemed like the vows. I don't know if because I was younger. It seemed like vows were taken more seriously. And in that vein right there, if you're going to get married to someone, and let's say y'all have the same belief structure, and y'all both take those vows under God, then what do you think the consequence would be to breaking that vow to God without putting forth your best effort, right? Because for example, I say this because in the black community, divorce rates are upwards of 80%. Now I may be stating that wrong, but I know divorce rates are up above 50%. That's no doubt. Of that 50%, 80% are initiated by women. And of that 80%, if I remember the stat correctly, 80% of those were reconcilable differences. And as the research was done, surveys and whatnot, the reconcilable difference typically is money. Well, and I understand that. Women want to be secure. They don't have to worry about the next day, the day after, the day after. They want to be able to be secure and do what they want to do. Understandable. We all do. But at some point, we have to look at the environment, you know, that we are in socially, as well as economically. So in my mind, unless unless there's literally no way of working that out, which it usually is, then there's no reason to divorce because of money. Take a break, yeah. You set rules, you set boundaries. But that marriage, y'all are partners. So let's say all the bills are paid, but I come home every day and the house isn't clean. Would that be a reason for me to divorce? Just an open-ended question. I could put that in the poll later on if I need to post it in the group chat. But I think it's a valid question, right? So overall, what the atheists are saying again is that maybe in America, that is, American society, maybe religiosity is a better state than what we have now. I think that would be for everybody to actually really take a look at and investigate. So, what was it like, let's say 30 years ago, when most of my audience was alive? What was it like 30 years ago when, you heard about, people going to church every weekend, every Sunday? There's a beef between NFL Sunday and Church Sunday. Now there's no beef. It's official NFL Sunday now, right? So what was it like 30 years ago? So I'm going to go ahead and take another break. I got some grass to cut and some lines to edge. I'll be back to finish up the episode here. I believe I got maybe 2 more segments. And it will be your episode for today, people. But ponder these things. Really think about it. What is your ideal? What are you aspiring for if you don't have a religious ideal, a spiritual ideal? Catch you in a minute.
Okay, we are live. We are live, and I just want to put this out there. It's me, your ghost with the most, Zevious86, and I would like to extend an invitation to all of you people out there to check out my YouTube channel, The Retro Gaming Dojo, and all of the adjoining social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can find me on there. Search up that The Retro Gaming, one word, Dojo on those platforms. I talk about wrestling. I play a lot of cool ass music, and of course, the main dish of the channel, we live stream video games. So come through, come hang out, come chill, listen to some dope beats, and I'll see y'all there.
What's up, world? I'm back. Just finished my last lawn for the day. Had a couple ads play for y'all throughout the episode. So we're gonna pick up kind of where we left off. You know, uh, Christianity and Christian values. You know, Christian morals. That type of code. You know, the ethics of it. How were those positive in years past, and how do we really need those values or anything like that, right? So that's where we're at. Uh, let's evaluate, and in order to evaluate that question, one of the examples I want to use to evaluate the question is the Ten Commandments. Now, disregarding how the Ten Commandments came into being, the story of Moses coming down the mountain and presenting the Ten Commandments on stone, that's neither here nor there. So what we're going to look at is the actual commandments themselves. So the first one, I've got it pulled up here, and if let me give you a second. If you want to pull it up, Google, you can take a look at the Ten Commandments yourself, or if you remember them. Let's take the scope of Christianity out of those commandments, and as much as we can, and let's see if they apply on a universal scale, right? So the first one is, "Thou shalt have no other God before me." So taking this, in the context, but let's take it out of the context of religion. It's kind of hard to do with that particular commandment. So what I'm going to do here is, instead of me, I'm going to say kind of like the ideal, right? So that commandment is basically saying, don't muddy up the ideal, right? When you, it's like I was asking earlier, what if you have no ideal? What are you aspiring to? That's basically what this is saying. Don't make things harder for yourself by aspiring for lesser goals. Basically, don't become complacent in life when things, I guess, seem to get tough or don't pan out the way you expect it to. I mean, nobody said the ideal was going to be easy, right? So that one's kind of hard to grasp without your religious eye on that. The second one may also be kind of hard to grasp without a religious scope as well, but it's, "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image." So don't make any idol, right? And that ties into the first commandment, "Thou shalt not have no God before me." So if you're creating idols such as cars, clothes, sports superstars, movie stars, things of that nature, then what are you aspiring to be them, or is that what you consider the ideal? Because last I checked, we're all flawed here. Everything in this realm is flawed by simple. It's inherentness in this realm, the realm of matter. You know, things break, things fall apart, things decay. Okay, there's no way around that. So aspiring to be something that decays like you do. Right. So when we tear down these old structures, these old architectures, these old ways of thinking, we have to have a way of thinking that's sustainable to come in behind it. You don't just tear down your house without having a house to live in. I mean, you can, but it's not the most practical thing to do once you have a family, right? So 3, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Let me take a look here. So the way it's described here is basically saying that, I'm pretty sure people have run into this. There's a number of Christians who say they're Christian, they believe in God, but the way they act in the world is different than what that is, right? Kind of like when George Bush invaded Iraq. He said God told him to do it, right? Now, let's be clear, let's be real about this. Nobody can ever say God didn't tell you to do something, right? Uh, my example of that one would be, well, what I would allude to in that case would be the case of Judas. A lot of people think, look at Judas as a betrayer. But depending on on your outlook, if you think of everything as already being known, everything already being played out, then Judas is only following the story. So in essence, he was doing what God needed him to do, right? And you can take that further and elaborate that if you want to. So don't. That's all that's saying is don't be a hypocrite at the end of the day. And we all don't like hypocrites. Let's be clear about that one. Let's even be real about that one. Without religion involved, we don't like people who say one thing and do another. Right? The 4th commandment is remember the Sabbath day and to keep it holy. The Sabbath day, which is it's a Sunday. But we all have days of rest, days of reunion, days of festival. We all have those in all of our cultures. And that's basically saying in doing, that rest or that festival to keep your focus not on the festival in and of itself, but the the reason we're all here, Um, so if you don't believe in God, how would I put this? Man. Well, it's like whatever higher power or whatever mechanism for how we got here, you're venerating that. You're keeping that respect for that process or that energy of that being, right? And that's what that's saying there. So it's like Christmas Day. People, my presence, my presence, my presence, my presence. There are people who will stress also the importance of the story of Christmas Day, not the presence, right? So it's that. Honor thy father and thy mother, right? I mean, if you don't honor your father and your mother, I mean, you're liable to run into a lot of trouble that you probably could have avoided. Let's say if you had just listened to what one of your parents told you, right? And it's like me. I have a very big thing with like the family name. The family name. You don't want to sully the name. It goes along with reputation, right? Good reputation generally will allow good things to come your way. A bad reputation will block those. So if you're not honoring your father and your mother, you're reflecting what they've instilled in you onto your name amongst the community. So eventually it gets back to the video, right? So we don't want to, in essence, embarrass the family name that way, and that would be father, mother, grandfather, all up and down that line. Well, that's the way I'm interpreting it, right? The sixth one, thou shalt not kill. I mean, that's pretty cut and dry. But for further explanation or elaboration on that point, so to kill anything, my first question would be, what would give you the right to kill anything? I mean, I didn't, even like your child, like you didn't necessarily create your child, give birth to it. You didn't create it. The blueprint was already, it was in you already. Now, of course, there are situations in which, self-defense comes into play. Those situations, of course, case by case, but at most, you don't want to kill somebody. Uh, Take a look at the hoods in America. One person gets killed. Somebody wants revenge. They go out and kill. Now somebody wants revenge for that murder. It becomes a bloody cycle, like literally a bloody cycle. So that's a very important rule or commandment. Thou shalt not commit adultery is number 7. That's a important one too. And I believe thou shalt not kill came before thou shalt not commit adultery, because you want to make sure that nobody's killing. That way, if we haven't settled the adultery issue, and adultery does pop up, you're not going out just murdering folks. Which I understand the sentiment. But yeah, also, there's like, you got to understand, at a time of kings and queens, and I put this to my stepkids at one point. If I'm a king and my realm is dependent upon my seed, my heir, my prince being my bloodline, then for my queen to step out and get pregnant by another man, in this case, you would now have put not only my regalness, your regalness as my queen, and our whole realm in jeopardy, right? So our livelihoods together would be jeopardized. On the flip side, for women, and now it hasn't been, I don't remember quite a lot of literature regarding how women are affected by men who commit adultery. Because typically, in the old days, men, for the most part, and granted there were deadbeats, but for the most part, men took care of their children, whether they were there or not, and whether that be time and money or just money. So that's another thing we've kind of deviated from, and increased in frequency over the decades. I would say there's a lot more open adultery now. I mean, look at some people call it baby mama culture. I wouldn't say that's due to adultery, but I know there's a lot of adultery involved in that, right? 8, thou shalt not steal. That's also a good one. uh, Granted, these last few ones definitely have no specific application to any one religion or belief system, because stealing, is pretty frowned upon regardless. If I worked for something and you came and took it and have no intent on replacing it, then yeah, that would be wrong. Considering it, especially if you're able to put in the effort to get what you need. I understand that level. There's a certain level of morality. If I have kids at home and they're starving, and I see, let's say this is the old interpretation, the old market full of fruits and veggies, and I take one orange, you know is that a sin that should be? Well, sin is sin, but is that, I guess would that be an unforgivable sin? You know. So there's, of course, all of these probably, there's commentary on all of these, so that you'd have to take a look into the commentary as well to get a full fleshed out explanation of what would be considered tolerable and intolerable. Then we have number 9: Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. So basically, don't lie on the people around you. I mean, why would you? That's not, again, not religious based, not uh, faith based. There's no dogma to that. I mean, it's just good practice not to just lie on people for any reason. Because again, it's a reputation thing. You want people to be able to trust you in some sense, as well as you want to be able to trust other people in some sense. Economies are based on that. Securities are based on that. Villages, housing, those types of things, communities are based on that simple level of trust. And if you can't even develop that simple level of trust, you will probably end up being an outcast in the community. And 10: Thou shalt not covet. So this is basically, don't be jealous. And this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier, how we've gotten away from that community and into the individuality, and part of that individuality that causes us to look at others and look at what we don't have as opposed to what we do have. That's money, cars, clothes, women, men, all of that, right? And the phrase comes to mind, it's always greener, the grass is always greener, right? You always heard that phrase before, and we all know that sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, but more often than not, that grass isn't greener on the other side. It's what the person maintaining the grass is doing to keep it green. So if you maintain your own grass, you'll have your grass green just like your neighbor's grass. So that's the part of individuality. It's like a dissonance, cognitive dissonance. It's an inversion. We want to be super individual, but yet we're looking at what everybody else has. When we're a community, we worried about our own because we understood where we were at in the chain. Right? It's like everybody's a king and a queen now. Well, who does the work if everybody's a king and a queen? So we don't necessarily think about these things like we should, or I don't think that we think about these things that like we should. I don't see it. I'll tell you that much. Because a lot of these issues is like, well, it's an obvious answer. Well, people are, well, why aren't we getting exposure? Because it's just simply not that many of y'all, or nobody cares about your plight like that. And everybody wants to have their plight heard, but this is a game of prioritization. You got to play your role at the right time. Until then, you've got to accept where you're at. Don't covet. Don't bear false witness. Don't murder. Right? So those are not just, a few of those are just, most of them, if not all of them, to some people, should be very good advice to live by, regardless if you believe in the Bible or not, regardless if you believe in God or not. It's just a good practice not to kill people, you know. So, with that being said, I'm about to go ahead and get me something to eat. We will have another episode coming for y'all on Friday, and hopefully we get some people to submit some music here, so y'all can get some new listeners, some new tunes out there. If not, I'll probably drop one of the old tunes or something like that we've got from the work that we've done. Other than that, y'all be good, be safe. It's your boy Karmic Dez 85 on most social medias. Want to talk about it podcast? I'm out. Dominate your day.